so because the green light was just so short and 2 cars can get through. Right. So the local council, we spoke to them because we had a few issues of people getting annoyed with us doing our friendly junction helping, but it's so busy at that time of the morning, everyone was like raring to go. So the council have developed this UK first technology, which we've got a remote control button to control the traffic lights. Wow. So it's like, there's an article about it, I can share it in the WhatsApp group later, we can share it.
Detailed job.
But like, there are other bike buses that are now discussing with this company who do this smart technology, and it's mad. It's like a little 3D printed remote control. I mean, Callum, who's 5, he had it on his handlebars last Friday, and so he pressed the button for the, which is just for me amazing. These kids, this is for the kids. Yeah. Callum, 5-year-old Callum, had the power. And so basically what happens is it only works on Friday and Monday mornings, return journey, and it sort of sends a thing to the receiver box. And it's our pal Brian at the council is like big, he's the button is his big pride and joy. So you press it, and then what happens is it wraps up really quickly wherever it's at in the sequence. It wraps it up, gets it to us, and then it holds the green for 45 seconds so that we can all get through. So it's really impressive.
Yeah, just need to find a hacker and a 3D printer.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
What's it called? You call it the button.
We call it the button, yeah. Or the juifer.
I've seen the front page of Daily Mail.
Go on, Dan.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, it is a really good question about stopping traffic on arterial roads. That sounds like that's a big deal. And you'll see tomorrow, in reality, in the morning in Worcester, no one's going anywhere fast. Yeah. So it's not difficult to stop the traffic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's,
and when they see the kids, I think it also, even a person that was stopped, if they see that it's a bike bus that is going, the mad face goes away when they see that it's.
Yeah,
I think that drivers have it already sort of in them to be annoyed about, but actually we're not holding anyone up really at all, because we're moving as well.
It's a good question. So when we first started doing this route, which was the first route, so this is what we graduated to from those tiny little children on their balance bikes doing 800 meters. So then we started doing this one, and it was such an adrenaline rush running this route. For the first like 3 or 4 months of doing it, like I need to go and sit in a dark room after running it, because like my heart would just like you know, I just stepped into traffic. There's like loads of kids. We have to do a right-hand turn, and then there was one bit of this route where we had to stop traffic in both directions and do a kind of zigzag onto a cycle path, etc., etc. And that it was like really high intensity stress, right? Now I'm like, there could be like 1,000 cars behind me. It'll be the same for you guys. Like, same for White Worcester. Doesn't even register. Like, I'm just like, yeah, chill, I can wait. So you do it is quite stressful when you first start doing it, right? But then you do grow in imperviousness to it massively.
And people start, definitely in Shawlands, the cars now expect us on a Friday and Monday.
So
sometimes they roll down the window and say, "Oh, I forgot it was Friday."
Yeah, waving, yeah. And so that the other thing that's absolutely amazing, and which is one of the things I'm proudest of in Worcester, is that because we've got 15 routes, we've interacted with probably 50-60% of the population just from the schools that we work with, half of the schools in the city, and we have changed the nature of driving in the city, even when there isn't a bike bus run. It's like there might be a cyclist on this road, or this by default this is a space I share with children now. It's an absolute game changer in terms of owning that space and taking that space back. We very rare, when we first started, we had flare-ups for drivers, but even though we're now running whatever it is, 250 bike buses, whatever, it's a big number. We might get one a month, even though and even then it's probably because we've done something wrong rather than the driver.
Congrats on that, because we definitely noticed it when riding the bike here in Worcester that drivers were very respectful and aware. So
Yeah, I mean, not all of them are, but,
yeah, but we definitely notice
Yeah.
an immediate
Yeah.
change from where we're coming. So
yeah, exactly. So I think, I mean, there is, you know, it's the driving culture in any city is going to affect things like bike buses, but like because we've been running for so long at such scale, we have materially affected the attitudes to roads here. Go on, Danny.
Just a quick one again, it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet as a bike bus volunteer, but I think the more non-parent volunteers you have, the lower the stress goes as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That's all I've got. Are there any other questions?
You said early on about issues with council involvement.
Yes.
So I'm from a local authority, Telford Reef Council,
Cool.
and I really want to get a bike bus started in a couple of schools where we do an organised walk to school, and last
Yeah.
week we had 300 kids turn up.
Amazing.
So really good numbers, and we know that there's
Demand
that
for
interest and demand. So what issues would you see with council involvement? Because my idea is, get started as a council, engage the parents, and then that becomes an ongoing thing,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. There's nothing wrong with council involvement per se. Like we have a great relationship with the city council and some parts of the Worcestershire County Council. The point being that and you'll know this about doing having things that are community led are far more sustainable than having something that's led by officers. That's kind of, So if you're creating schemes and initiatives and support structures that can be led by the communities, I think that's much more. There's no way city council could do what we do because we wouldn't even be able to get started. Mainly because it's all free, right? It's all there.
but the city council could hire you to do what you do.
They could do, yeah. They could do. That's not this session. That's the next
No,
session.
I know. Just
yeah. They
yeah,
could do.
but I also had a comment on that. Just there's also a risk in community. I do acknowledge that there's a lot of strength in the community-based initiative. Although there's a risk I would see, that is sometimes you get a really active parent, which is like the champion of the bike bus.
Yeah.
But then his kid goes to the other school, he grows up, and the initiative dies because the other parents, they are just participants. They don't want to lead. They don't want to be the ones, or they can't. Or so you can also be unstable because of that.
We have experienced that. I mean, we're 3.5 years in, and we've had, although I'm really enthused and energized today, we've had some real low points where we're getting tired. People have had bereavements, different things going on in their lives, and it just is hard to keep going and keep people mobilized, but so inspired this morning with Worcester volunteers and asking for help, what you were talking about. But also in Glasgow, they're going to be trialling with 3 schools paying some parent volunteers to try some bike buses. So I think maybe an incentive.
It comes with other issues as well. But
Go on, Dan.
No, just really quickly, so about the local authority thing. So we put on, I don't know what you say, 250 bike buses a term. We do monthly critical masses every month, and they work in the city seamlessly. Last year, the Mayor of Worcester was a Green Party mayor and wanted to do an organised ride on the sort of critical mass basis, and as part of a charity event. And with 9 months of planning, it didn't happen because risk assessments and insurance and loads of other stuff got in the way. And we could have put it on with 24 hours notice, couldn't we?
Just about.
but the council was going to support the kiddie commons.
Yeah, it was more of it was that model, but they wanted to do a group family bike ride around the
Because the
city.
kiddie commons should be not against the council, but
Like a protest.
Yes.
towards the council.
So it'd be great if you could make that happen, but equally you may find internally that there are too many barriers.
And on the subject of sustainability, we've had bike buses stop. So we've had at least one, if not, in fact we've had 2, where the parent support has not been there, and we just flip it and just go to the next school.
Yeah.
You know, so we can't. And again, that's one of the reasons why we say this is parent led. And we will turn up, and we did it for one school. In fact, both of them. We were turning up for a month, every week, and there were no children there.
Yeah.
And so we just do the ride anyway, and then
allocate resources.
yeah, exactly, and then do it. So and I'm super happy if that we're just creating space for the parents if they want to run it, and if they don't, that's fine.
Yeah, it's democratic.
You know,
It's
yeah,
on
exactly.
demand, right?
Exactly. So
But the problem with that is then you don't get that bike bus at that school, so those children don't get that experience.
it's
Oh,
true.
I'm
Yeah,
not- you know, I'm
no,
not blaming you for that.
It's completely true. But we can't, you know, we're just limited by our own constraints, right? So like, we're much more likely to have a bike bus at the school where there's already a bike bus, right? Because you know there's a family coming through that's going to step up and take it on when so and so leaves, and it's much
And I
more
think
likely.
maybe that's an issue with the voluntary model, really, ultimately.
There's loads of issues with
But
voluntary.
even on
There's loads of-
a paid model, we work with a paid model. You also need to make decisions because you have a budget for the year, so you can only do like, I don't know, X amount of routes. If there's one that is dying, like no kids, you need to allocate these resources to another school. There's always a limit with volunteers or because you have a budget, right? So it's not fair to keep a route that has one kid when you have a new school that has like 20 kids that want to enroll.
Yeah.
How can you weigh that?
And this takes me on to the final sort of question really, is ultimately, because you mentioned about human infrastructure, and I've got my own terminology for it, but ultimately, you know, it's just a sticking plaster for the fact that the infrastructure does not exist to make that happen all the time.
Yeah, the bike bus, I will always, I love being part of this movement, but the reason we're doing it is because of the lack of infrastructure and because we're angry, actually. And so, this is joyful and amazing to be part of. I love the community that we've built, but there's a problem, and that's why we're doing this. So we had a moment in Glasgow where our bike bus became a good news story for the press and the council and politicians jumping on what we were doing, and then we had to sort of stand back and be like, sorry, hang on, this is not. You know, and actually starting to voice that, and actually visiting Barcelona helped us. We came back feeling a bit more sort of punk about the situation. I think we were a bit apologetic in the first year, and then we went to Barcelona, and we experienced what goes on there. And so yeah, there's a reason why we're doing it. And yes, it's great to roll out bike buses, but actually let's roll out the infrastructure, and so that my kids can cycle to school.
Just to remember, that's the subject of the next workshop
It is.
at 3 o'clock.
Nice.
That's the one I'm paying for.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, folks. We'll call it a day.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.